Morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're going to give it a minute for everybody else to join, and then we'll get things started here. In the meantime, I'm just going to throw out a quick poll question. If you have a chance, just go ahead and answer that real quick.
Awesome. And while we're here in the room today, I'm just going to do a quick introduction on my end. I'll be hosting this webinar today with Dylan. My name is Will, and I'm a construction success manager at Fieldwire. Previously worked in construction, mainly in the GC space, and focusing on design build projects, residential, mixed use, and I guess on my end, really familiar with the closeout, punch list, and kind of any general processes on the GC end. So looking forward to hosting your webinar today.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Will. And thanks, everyone, for joining us today for our live webinar on Introduction to Tasks. Just want to kick things off with some general housekeeping announcements. Just a reminder that this webinar is going to be recorded, and a copy of the recording along with the slide deck will be emailed to all of you at the end of the session. To keep things on track, everyone's going to be muted throughout the session. So if you have any comments or questions, please put your comments in the chat and your questions in the Q&A pane. Questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation during our 10-minute Q&A, and we'll try our best to get to all of them, but for any questions that we don't address during the session, we'll have one of our experts reach out to you directly. We also have a quick post-webinar survey that's going to pop up at the end of the presentation, and we'd really appreciate it if you could take just a couple minutes to fill that out, as it lets us know how we're doing and it helps us plan for content for upcoming webinars going forward. One other note, I just want to let you know that this webinar is going to be 45 minutes per the request of a lot of users. I know in the GoToWebinar email it said 30 minutes, but just want to let you know that it will go up to about 45. With that, I'd like to introduce you again to Will. Will, take it away.
Awesome. So good morning or good afternoon, depending on where everyone is. Just going over a little bit of an agenda of what I wanted to cover today. So today I'll cover the basics on how you can quickly set up tasks on Fieldwire and streamline some of your existing workflows. Because our session today is mainly on the introduction to task and not too much of diving into details. I'll also walk through a couple of use cases from GCs, subcontractor, and also an architect to give you an idea of what the workflow can actually look like for your team. And after going through some of those use cases, I would like to share some tips and tricks to help you get set up a task on your project in a matter of minutes. And it's a pretty simple process, so I think everyone here should be pretty used to and easy to get to, considering our easy user interface. Sorry. Well, after going through some of those, we'll wrap up our webinar today with a quick Q&A session at the end. But in the meantime, like what Dylan mentioned, feel free to type in your questions in the chat. And if there's anything you're interested to learn about, feel free to let us know as well, and we'll try to address as many questions as we can. But if there's anything we're not able to address, we're definitely going to follow up in a follow-up email. Sweet, so let's get started here. And before I dive into tasks, I just want to introduce Fieldwire a little bit. And for folks who have not used Fieldwire before, what is Fieldwire? So Fieldwire was built to help your field and office teams save time and money through an intuitive and collaborative project management software. We really aim to give the tool for everyone to improve productivity, whether they're on-site or off-site, and manage some of their daily activities within a single software instead of using, a bunch of different things like phones, emails, text messages, et cetera. So for us, we provide a real-time progress tracking, messaging, and access to like the latest project documents really on your fingertips. So whether you're, on your mobile phone, on your tablet, on your laptop, you can access Fieldwire just as easily. And lastly, our software is really focused on kind of streamlining that collaboration aspect and communication between both the field and office team, but also with external project members. So if you're, if you're a GC working with architects or consultants or engineers, or subcontractors working with GCs, you can kind of have a really streamlined coordination and really help make that workflow a little bit more effective between the parties you work with. And with Fieldwire, your documents are stored electronically, so it's accessible both online and offline. So let's say you're on the site and you don't have access to network, you can really just pull out your phone or tablet that has Fieldwire, and you can access that information right away. And we really want to have this as an option for folks to really minimize the risk of delays and make sure everyone has access to the most updated information. So some good things about Fieldwire, and I'll dive into tasks shortly, but Fieldwire is a really easy to use software. Personally, I've used Fieldwire myself before joining the team. And whether you're in your office or on site, you can really access Fieldwire from any single device. So it makes it really easy for you to stay connected with your team on a single software. And the intuitive interface allows users to boost their productivity within a matter of minutes. And we also offer a variety of resources such as our knowledge base and a bunch of how-to tutorials to facilitate a smooth and speedy adoption for new and existing users. So if you're a brand new user, don't worry, you're also in good hands, and we have a lot of information to help you get onboarded as soon as possible. And we'll be sharing some of that information at the end of the webinar as well, so don't need to worry about that. Awesome, so now we got that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about tasks and what are Fieldwire tasks and how can it help you on your project. Fieldwire's task is designed to improve work documentation and communication for a wide range of construction professionals. Whether you're a GC, subcontractor, engineer, architect, consultant, developer, or even a property manager, we created tasks to increase the visibility to track of some of the risks or issues that you may want to share or close out with your team. And the task feature ensures that all the work is recorded. At the same time, it helps everyone stay aligned throughout the entire project while holding team members accountable and making sure everyone is up to date, with all that information. So over here, I have some sample examples of how you can see tasks. Tasks are these little teardrop icons or kind of like a Kanban view or kind of an analytics view. So just to give you a range of how flexible the task feature is, I'll dive into some of the use cases shortly. So going a little bit deeper into what task is, we really aim to give the ability for folks to capture more information on the project. We know that as projects are getting more and more complicated, it's really easy to lose sight of some of the information that we want to document and maybe look back to down the road. And one thing I want to show here is how easy Fieldwire task is to be filled out. Input your information that you require, such as checklists or photos or messages. Anything on the right hand side are the task attributes, which are actually customizable, and you can kind of track any information that you would like. But our main goal is to really let stakeholders go to one task here, see all the messages, statuses, attachments, and updates directly within one task, and also have the ability to share this information out to anyone within the team. And lastly, before I dive into some of the examples, I do want to mention that Task is a highly configurable tool, and you can use it to manage a variety of different workflows. And without further ado, let's dive into some examples of how our partners use Task. And today we'll cover 3 different examples. One where a general contractor uses Task, and another 2, the second one is the architect. And last one, we'll go through a specialty contractor, an low voltage electrical subcontractor. Sweet, so going over to the first project here. First is a very simple punch list and deficiency workflow used by GCs to track some of the work that needs to be rectified. This workflow allows team members to stay up to date and accountable for closing any issue out. So in this scenario, GCs can set up their task categories to be broken down into different scopes. So if I go over on the left here, for the folks who have maybe seen this before, the left-hand side is where I can, have a variety of different task categories. Over here, you can see that I broke it out into different scopes of work, such as electrical, mechanical, drywall, etc. And on the top here, you can see these are the different statuses that a task is in. So really kind of like what status each task is in and how you can push it to essentially track it to resolution. So over here, I have one for scheduled work, one for deficient work, one for rework, one for completed, one for verified. So in this case, these are also customizable. So both task categories and statuses are customizable to kind of track what you want for your project. Let's go into a plan here and show you what that kind of looks like. So during a site walk, anyone from the team who has access to Fieldwire can actually document deficient work in real time. Whether they're on their phone or tablet, you can just quickly pull out the device and quickly create a little drop on the actual plan. Kind of looks like this. And this allows you to really just track out any outstanding work that needs to be completed or any work that needs to be fixed on the actual project. So over here, if I click onto the replace carpet tile here, you can see that the damaged work is documented, and it really gives you an exact location with a photo for reference, and also a checklist to make sure that the work is done correctly. This is also just one example of how you can use tasks, but one thing I want to note here is just really how easy it is to go onto a plan, just take a look at all the things that are outstanding or complete, and having like a quick follow-up with it while you're on site or when you're coordinating with some of your subcontractors or trades. Going back to the plan here, over here you can see, let's say for example, I also want to link tasks between each other, so I can have the ability to link tasks that are related to each other to increase the visibility across teams. And in this case, the GC pins a deficiency to every single location on the plan. And if I want to go to another specific deficiency, I can just click into this and it'll give me the location of where that task is actually located. And this is one of the pretty cool workflows that allows you to really increase that visibility by adding some watchers perhaps to this mix and keeping everyone updated whenever tasks are closed out. So for example, if I go into the replace damaged carpet tile, I can see here that Bob here is a watcher. And if I complete this task here, maybe I want to take a photo to show completion, Bob will get updated right away after I complete this task. And after having a bunch of different deficiencies or information tracked on Fieldwire, you would probably want to export that information out. And one of the things you can do is using the generate reports feature under the task tab. And you can generate a punch report to kind of show all that information that you want to show within that specific report. So because we actually broke out the categories based off of different subtrades, I can quickly just generate an electrical punch report that's like maybe electrical deficiency list. And I can create this filter off for the only ones that are open or deficient work or rework. And then I can essentially send this out to specific trade partners or anyone who wants to get access to this report, whether they're on Fieldwire or not, they have access to this, this document. So I can either send it out now, or one thing that I personally like doing is to schedule this out and automate that workflow. So I can be sending it out first day every month or something, or specific dates that are within the month to kind of follow that billing cycle for subcontractors. And once you have that set up, you don't really need to look at it because anything that gets completed will not show up within the next report. And one thing that I want to note here that's been really helpful for some of our GC clients is having that record to look back to at the end of the project in case you need additional context or you just need additional information on that project. Sweet. And moving on to the next one here is the device installation workflow used by low voltage contractors to track some of the equipment that needs to be installed and really providing a QA/QC record and documentation for the entire team. So this can be really helpful when you're doing commissioning or testing, just to make sure that everything is kind of working in the proper manner. In this workflow, you may notice on the left here that the task categories and the statuses are actually different from the previous workflow. Over here, the electrical contractor uses the categories to track the various different electrical devices that are installed on the project, such as cameras and card readers, and task statuses are used to track the progress of scheduled work. So over here, I have one for constraint, maybe something that is related to design that has an outstanding correspondence that I need to look into, some of the planned work, some of the install pending, equipment released and ready for testing. And this is really just to track out, let's say for example, a card reader from the planned work to being tested, every step of the way, there's some status to track it out to make sure, you know, we're doing the right thing and we're closing out that issue if there is. Additionally here, one thing I want to note is, I think for the most part, we like to think of tasks being used in either a proactive manner or a reactive manner. So in the case of the GC workflow, you know, it's really reactive because we're just documenting some of that deficient work and, you know, outlining it to, showing it to the entire team. In this case, this is more of a proactive workflow where you can actually pre-create a bunch of the tasks at once and, you know, have them within Fieldwire to be tracked out, and you can have them actually stored within specific plans as well. And I want to go through a little bit of how you can do that today. And you can access this by clicking the import task feature. And what you can do is you can populate this template with all the information you might want to include within that task. And the coolest part is you can actually link the plans directly onto this specific template as well. So it'll actually locate it into a plan and to a specific position on the actual plan itself. So then you can have a quick reference to these tasks that you've created. And it's a really good way just to set up your tasks. So then if there's, let's say, you know, an equipment matrix, you can just upload this on a Fieldwire and track out the entire completion from, you know, design to even commissioning. And then once you have that sorted out, if you see anything that's in red, it means it's probably not reading the right plan. So maybe I don't have a A2.01-1 plan. And, you know, this can be rectified when you go back out to make sure those plans exist. So let's go through an example of what that looks like on the actual plan. So over here, you can see I have a bunch of different tasks here. And right here, let's use the card reader, for example. I can see there's a bunch of different card reader tasks. If I filter out for just card readers on the left, I can see just my card reader task, and I can see them in different statuses. And in this case, you know, each of these tasks are in a different color. So then you can, you know, let's say open up one of the orange ones here. This one is still in planned mode or planned status. You can see how we can import checklists, any wiring diagram, or maybe any additional, you know, text or messages, correspondence, or attachments. You can link them directly into Fieldwire. And you can also assign it out. So over here, I'm going to assign this out to Dylan. In this case, he's going to get notified that this task has been assigned to him. We can set a start and end date to make sure, you know, we're tracking out the completion of this actual task. And then lastly, you can add any tags or watchers to this for, you know, additional visibility as well. Lastly, over here, you know, if I go into another similar card reader task here, I can see that it's in a different status here, but again, I can see, you know, if there's any background information regarding this specific task, it's all displayed within one task itself. And then lastly, if I go into the completed phase, you can see a full record of anything that's related to this specific card reader. And if there's any related task, let's say, you know, something that's a follow-up task regarding this card reader, you can link it within each other. And this gives you the ability to kind of associate tasks together and make sure there's a relationship so that it gets tracked out. One other thing that some of our electrical contractors use is the Gantt chart view. So you may have seen from our previous slide that there's a couple of different ways to see tasks. You know, plans is one of them, but in addition to that, there's also our Kanban view and also our calendar view and then also our Gantt chart view. And this is pretty neat because we can essentially schedule work on here. So let's say I just want to look at all the card readers that are ongoing and which ones are scheduled. I can just see it from the Gantt chart view. I can download this and send it out to any of my trade partners or even my GC or clients, depending on who I want to share this information with. Or maybe I can just share it with myself and just see all that information directly from the Gantt chart view. Lastly, I want to walk through a workflow where architects and even engineers can use tasks to document progress photos and track some of the outstanding design coordination items. So in this case, again, notice how task categories and statuses are kind of formatted differently. And in this case, the categories are used to track a variety of different issues or outstanding work, such as BIM coordination, inspections, observation, or even MEP work. And then status is over here is used to track different kind of, I guess, design coordination, outstanding issues, on hold, or complete. And in this case, some of the architects and engineers I've worked with use it as kind of like a to-do list and tracking out some of the work that they need to kind of complete. Over here, you can see there's work that you can see that's maybe overdue or due today. If I click into this one, for example, you can see that there's outstanding work that assigned to different people or even myself. And it's just a great way to keep track of all that information all in one place. And one thing I want to note here is I'll dive a little bit deeper into this later, but if you go on to the top right here above any of the statuses by the gear icon, you can actually click on it, and this allows you to essentially edit the task status to edit names or different colors and who has access to these statuses. And this allows you to really customize status to fit your unique workflow and make sure that having all that information that you need without compromising on anything you want to track. So let's go over to one of the tasks over here, and just want to give you an idea of what the task might look like and the type of information you can track within this workflow. Again, you can see there's related tasks that shows you relationship between different tasks that have a follow-up item or have any relation with the previous task. You can add a checklist to follow up with things that you need to kind of complete, or have photos, documentation of anything that you want to keep a record of, and make sure everyone has that information directly on the task itself. Again, in this workflow, you can use task on your tablet or phone as well. So in this case, go into the plans here. When you're on a site walk as an architect engineer, you're really busy looking for not just issues, but documenting work that you can input into your specific site report or inspection report. So one thing we can help you in this case is to just have your plans uploaded on Fieldwire. And when you're going through a site walk, you don't have to document everything, from pen and paper. You can just open it up on your tablet or phone and pin a task down to, let's say, for example, a specific location. Let's say this multi-use room here, and you can document the work that's been completed. And the coolest thing is there's like a timeline of when that photo was uploaded or when that message was inputted into the task. And you can see the different times that you have this specific photos of that work that needs to be completed, and just track out the entire process without compromising on the time spent. One little trick here I've noticed that has been really helpful is the 360 photo feature that we provide for our clients. Taking one photo can give you one perspective of that location, but taking a 360 photo can really help you enhance like what you're looking at and really give you a better context of what the condition of that project is at that point in time. And one item here I want to note is if I go back to my plan over here, I have different types of tasks. So I have tasks that are in acronyms of PP, which is progress photos, in green, and I also have tasks that are observations, and also tasks that are deficiencies or design coordination. So it's really easy for me to just open up a plan and see all the things that are outstanding from from architect or engineer point of view. And one thing I want to note here is after you have a lot of these documented, what you can do is actually, and this is just one way to do it, is to actually use the tags feature. And over here, I actually use the tags feature to input a date to track out the specific task that I've tracked on in a specific date. And what I can do is after end of the day of a full day of progress photos, observations, comments, I can actually go back to the task reports, generate a report, and over here I pre-created a task report template for a site report, and I can filter out for all the tasks that actually have February 8th, 2023 as a tag, and then all that information can be broken out into like all the progress photos taken that day, all the observations, all the deficiencies, and you can really just send it out to your clients and have it as like a record for everyone to kind of follow along with. And this is really important because as you're building a project, there's going to be more and more information that just gets stacked within Fieldwire, and generating a report that can be sent to stakeholders is going to be a pretty simple way for you to just complete that site report without going through tons of photos through your archives, because there's already photos embedded in your plans, and that gives you more context when you want to look back at work that's completed down the road. And just FYI here, all the use cases I've kind of walked through today are customizable. So here are just some examples of what our clients use tasks for. Following up here, I want to actually walk through a couple of different things you can do to set up your task and get you kind of 90% of the way to configuring your own custom workflow. Starting off, I want you to think about what you want to track in a project, and you can kind of pick, depending on what you want to track. You want to customize your task categories and statuses based off of that. So for example, here in the GC workflow, you can see that the different scopes was actually used to track out as a different category, and the different statuses here is to track out different deficient work. Maybe you want to track additional work, you can actually go into the manage statuses key here and add some new statuses that you want to track. So maybe if I want to track commissioning or warranty items in a different construction phase, I have the ability to do that as well. And once you have your task statuses and categories set up, I want to go through a little bit of some tips on how you can essentially leverage tasks to best manage some of your workflows. So starting off with some best practices that I definitely know for my clients is when you're creating a task, it's really easy, to kind of forget things down the road when there's so many projects coming on or so many fires that you have to kind of resolve. And one thing that I note is please make sure you tag all the tasks if possible to a plan. And this will really save you time down the road if you're trying to look for information or trying to look for what happened at a specific location. And over here, you can see, if I want to tag a specific location for a task and someone asks me a question, I can just, I don't even need to answer their question. They can just go onto a plan and see that information themselves without having to text me or call me or kind of look for that information in other methods. One additional item I want to note here is the ability to link tasks. And I think that's a really neat feature where it helps you establish relationships between multiple different tasks, and it helps you provide more visibility and also prevent risk of missing or forgetting about certain tasks. And this can be really easily done by clicking the new task or existing task button, and it allows you to link these tasks across each other. Moving on here, another item that I personally love is the different types of views you have within Fieldwire. So I think I previously mentioned there's 4 types of views. There's a Kanban view, there's your calendar view, there's your Gantt chart view, and your analytics dashboard view. The Gantt chart and calendar view is a really nice feature, or has a really nice feature where you can actually just export this as a PDF document, and then you can share this with others. So if you're scheduling work or just planning work out for some of your trade partners or just folks you work with, you can just easily have that information downloaded from Fieldwire. And one thing to make sure it's works properly, it's just having the start and end date within your task. And this gives you the ability to have a longer task that gets tracked out or a shorter task that you can just complete and change the status right off the bat. Same with the Gantt chart over here. One thing I want to note is, let's say there's tasks that are actually related to each other. You can actually select them directly from the task itself, from the Gantt view itself, and you can shift those dates. And because these 3 tasks are dependent on each other, you can shift all of them all at once to kind of shift all the dates and make sure the accurate information is documented. And we also track when that date was changed on our end as well. And lastly here, I think after having so many different tasks on a project, maybe you have some tasks that are tracking deficient work, and then some tasks are tracking planned work, maybe even some tasks that are tracking QA/QC work. And you want to export this as a report. Just some best practices I've noticed for reports here is we have 3 types of reports. So the first one is a PDF summary, which contains some more high-level information. A PDF detailed, which contains all the information that you really want to include within the report. And we also have a CSV report, which is kind of like just a CSV view of all the different tasks that we have that you want to filter out for. I personally like using PDF detailed because it gives me the customizability to show the information that I want to include in this report. And at the same time, I can also sort by different categories, location, plans, or statuses. And one thing that I want to note here is setting up that task category and status is going to be probably one of the most important things to pull out these reports, because if you have that set up properly, a well-structured workflow would be pretty easy for you to extract certain information into these reports. So in this case, using the same example where electrical work that was documented on Fieldwire, I can just select electrical here and it'll pull all the outstanding things that are related to electrical. So yeah, just want to go through a little bit of things that I think good to share with the team. And I think for the most part, because Task is such a customizable and flexible tool, there's no one way to use it. It's really just kind of looking for the best way that you think your team can interpret it and use it with each other. And I think for the most part, Task has been a relatively easy to use feature from our clients, and a relatively popular feature that really makes us stand out as a project management software. So that kind of wraps up my presentation today, and we can leave some time for some Q&A and also addressing any questions on your end.
Awesome, thanks, Will. Let's see. So I have a question. How did you populate those tasks into the task importer?
Yeah, so one thing I want to note here is if you want to upload a bunch of tasks at once, you can access this by clicking the task tab module here and clicking import task. So over here, this is actually a template. There's a template that I actually have to fill out all the information here. And once I have this template filled out, I can actually just copy and paste that information directly on the task importer. And if you want to learn a little bit more about how the task importer works, we actually have a help article here. If you click this, that walks you through some of the examples of how to use the importer feature. So if I go down to here, there it is. I can click into this to kind of show you how the task importer feature works. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, do you mind just showing that template that you built out for the Excel spreadsheet real quick?
Yeah, so it looks something like this. I just built it on a Google Sheet essentially. You can do it on Excel, anything you like. But the main thing to include is just making sure that the columns you have here are aligned with the columns actually within the actual task importer. And once you copy and paste it, making sure the categories and the statuses are following the same conventions as your project, and then same as your plans or checklists that you might include, that information will all get populated automatically.
Awesome, thanks. Is there a template that can be created for having the same statuses and task items that can be pulled in for different jobs?
Yeah, and just to confirm, I guess for if you have, like, let's say one thing that I propose for my clients when I work with them is to really set up a task category and status for that specific project. And then the good thing is that you can use this as a template project down the road, because you can just duplicate that project and reuse the exact same conventions for your task categories and statuses. And it even carries over some of the folder structures that you may have set up on plans or files. So once you create that template project, kind of having a task status and categories to your liking, you can just duplicate this project. Let me go show an example. If I want to create a new project, I can actually clone from an existing project that already has that preset category and statuses.
Awesome. Do you mind just showing real quick what the things are that you can clone over there?
Sure, yeah. If I go on to new project here, let's just type in the actual project that I want to clone over. And you can see that there's a bunch of different things, such as, the people that you want to clone over, if there's the same list of users, if there are different forms. I didn't cover forms today, but I think that's something that we would like to cover with the team in another webinar. You can copy over some of the categories, statuses for tasks, and just different information that you want to include within that project to help you set up like a skeleton and not, recreating a project every single time.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, so I have another question here. How do you assign the due date for a task?
Yeah, that's a great question. And let's open one up here. So let's do this install exit sign. So let's say, Dylan, I'm working with Dylan, and there's something that I want him to work on or follow up with. I can create a task, set that assignee to Dylan here. And if he was on this project, if he's not, I'll have to invite him. But in this case, let's just use Bob. And once I have that assignee sent over, I can set a start and end date from the start and end date under task attributes. So in this case, let's say it starts today and I want it to be completed within a week. You can see that over here, I have my start and end date. And also on the left here, it shows you in progress work, which is like work that is actually on that calendar within that specific time frame. But if it's, let's say, overdue, such as this task over here, it was actually due yesterday, but it's still not completed yet. So it shows up in the overdue column. And it's really nice because it pops up like right in front of everyone. And it's good for you just to keep track of the outstanding things that, may need some priority or may need some additional context or follow-up.
Perfect. Can you quickly go through just creating a task from scratch with starting by like pinning it on a plan?
Sure. So let's go on to a plan here with less tasks. So one thing I want to note here on the left-hand bar, this is where all our markup feature, task inputter, and task uploader, and anything that you want to add on to plans is essentially accessible through this left sidebar. So if I click onto the first one, this little inverted teardrop icon, I can click onto this and add a task. And let's say, I'm just going to this janitor room here. And maybe I've noticed some, damaged drywall here on the back right corner. Pin that specific location, and I can just type in the title for this specific task. And I can input that category here. So let's mark it off as drywall. Assign it out to the person who you want to follow up with this. And then typically I like taking photos of the task as well. So I know I'm generating this task from my laptop, but if I'm on my iPad or phone, I can just create that task in the same manner and attach a photo, attach any messages directly on the actual task. And then going back to start and end dates, if it's time sensitive, definitely leverage the start and end date to mark out your task as well. So once you have this process set down, it's pretty quick. It takes you a couple of seconds to probably create a task and like have all that information uploaded.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, here's one. Does the Fieldwire app allow organizations to incorporate clients info or clients into seeing the updates specific to their project?
Oh, sorry, broke out a little bit. Can you repeat that question again?
Let me ask that again. Does the Fieldwire app allow organizations to incorporate clients into seeing the updates specific to their project?
Yeah, that's a good one. So I guess within the task itself, the project users that are, let's say, opening up this list here, the project users who are actually collaborating on this project can all see this information in real time. So the benefit of having them on the actual project is they can actually see that task, get those updates in real time. But if they're not on Fieldwire, you still have the ability to export that information out in the task reports and sending them out into third parties, recipients here, if they are not on Fieldwire, or organizations that don't have Fieldwire, you can export that out to them as well, and they can see those task information as well, just not in real time, but we still give the ability to track some of that information. But I hope that answers your question.
Awesome. When selecting task categories, do you have to have default categories preloaded, or can you add them on the fly?
Yeah, you can add them on the fly. So over here, I actually personally I like using the settings tab here. And if I go over to where is it? Manage statuses. Sorry, you're referring to statuses or categories?
Categories.
Categories. Oh, sorry. Let's go back here a little bit. So for categories, you can create them on the fly. If you scroll into the bottom of the screen here, you can just create new categories by clicking this. Let's say we want to track a new one for millwork. And you can see that we have a new one for millwork. One thing to also note here for categories that for folks who aren't that familiar, outside of filtering out for a task from the categories, you can also filter for task on the top right here. And really it gives you a more fine-tuned way to filter specific tasks that you want to see on this dashboard. So, outside of just categories, maybe I want to see just categories of electrical work that is, completed, or et cetera, or specific assignees attached to this task itself.
Awesome. Okay, I have a good question here. Well, this is a great example in the case of buildings, but how about the other types of structures like bridges and tunnels, for instance? Does this software propose the same features?
Yeah, so I think one of the beauty on for Fieldwire is any plans that you upload on Fieldwire has access to all the things that we just showed. So let's say on a building here, I don't have a plan for bridges, but let's say for example, opening up a structural plan here, maybe that might be a little bit better. So let's just use this for example. Same thing. You can also use all the tasks to track out that information or issues that you may come across within a civil project, and whether it might be excavation work or anything that's related to utilities. One thing that I've actually seen in that use case was to track some of this information on Fieldwire and show a record of, let's say, the marked site utilities, making sure that it's actually documented on the plan. And anyone who has access to Fieldwire can see very clearly, what to avoid if they're excavating. Something like that, I think, could be really easily tracked on Fieldwire as long as the plan is uploaded. Tasks can be linked to track anything that you want for your project.
Yeah, just to add on to that, like kind of Will was showing, there's definitely a lot of different workflows you can create with those different statuses and categories. So like whatever your project is and whatever you need to track, Fieldwire has the ability to kind of be set up to be customized to whatever you're tracking on your project. Got another one here. If you create a checklist on a project, does it automatically populate to the account templates?
Yeah, so if you create a checklist on a project, it doesn't get populated on the account level, but what you can do is similar to the statuses and categories for tasks, when you duplicate it over for your project, you can also duplicate these checklists over. And I guess if you want to just quickly see what checklists you have available for your project, you can actually go onto the settings tab here, click manage checklist to see essentially all the checklists that you have on this project that can be carried over if you were to duplicate a project and clone that information over.
Awesome. Oh, I have a good question here. Can you explain the difference between categories and tags?
Yeah, that's a great one. So let's go back to task here. So I think the way I see it, at least if I open up a task, I see categories as kind of one of the ways to filter out for the I guess the big ticket categories for that specific task. So in this case, let's say give an example here. Categories right now are used to be tracked with the scopes of work. Tags, I can actually go a little bit more granular. So if I want to break down from like even within an even more detailed filter within a category, I can actually add an additional tag here so that I can filter out for these specific, I guess, tasks down the road. So over here, I have one for pre-drywall inspection. I noted that this was actually related to drywall, but if I, have just drywall and I don't have any tags to break out these pre-drywall checklists, then I can't really, filter out for that information on a report. But if I use tags, I have the ability to use 2 filters instead of 1 for filtering out those reports. And I think that's one aspect to think about tags. One thing I also want to note here is while we're talking about task attributes, if you scroll over to the top here, you can actually click into the gear icon to manage some of the custom task attributes that you might want to include or leave out for your specific task.
Perfect. Is there a best practice on how many, oh, it looks like we're about at time. So this is the last one, but is there a best practice on how many statuses you should have?
Yeah, so I guess there's no best practices. It's really kind of up to what your team needs. I think for example, if you want to manage simple workflows, maybe just having like 4, 5 different statuses is more than enough. But if you want to track, a variety of different work that has different statuses, going on to here, you can really just use the manage statuses to create however many statuses that your team might need. I believe it's up to 8 or 7. 7. And to learn more about different statuses here, you can click over here to learn more about how to manage some of these custom statuses. But just to answer that question, I think for me, less statuses is great for simple workflows. But if you have a lot of different workflows within a project, you may want to incorporate more statuses and train up the team on how to use these statuses so it doesn't get too convoluted and confusing for everyone.
Awesome. I think we're at time, so we're going to wrap it up, but appreciate all of that, Will, and for answering all those questions. Just want to let everybody know that you should be receiving a recording and the slide deck in a follow-up email tomorrow or the next day. And for any questions that we didn't get to during the presentation, we'll be reaching out to you directly. And then last but not least, just really appreciate it if you guys would fill out that post-webinar survey. Just helps us know how we're doing and what to do going forward. But thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks everyone. It's a pleasure hosting this webinar, and looking forward to seeing everyone in the next one.